Hey guys, welcome to Sweet and Small. Today we are going to start our cupcake course. For this first segment, we will be making a vanilla cupcake with vanilla buttercream. I like to start with this cupcake because it's very basic. It's got very few ingredients and it's hard to mess up. It's great for beginners. I also like to start with this cupcake because once you've mastered it, you can incorporate multiple flavors and still get great, fantastic results. For instance, if you wanted a mango cupcake, just add mango puree. You can take out some milk and take out some sugar, and you've got a perfect mango cupcake. So let's get started. I'd like to get started today with covering the basics. So we're going to go over everything you would need to make the perfect cupcake as if you've never baked before. The first thing you would need is a baking tray. This is a Wilton cupcake tray. It holds 12 cupcakes. I like to use this because it's got a little weight to it and it cooks the cupcakes perfectly. The cupcakes we will be making today are for 24 cupcakes, which means that you would need 2 of these baking trays. It's important that you pick up the same baking trays for both the cupcakes because if you don't, the cupcakes won't cook at the same time and they won't cook evenly. The next thing, if you do not have this tray, there's an alternative tray you can get, and I'll show you that in a second. This is a silicone baking tray. It's also made by Wilton, but the important thing is if you're not using a liner for your cupcakes, these are great because it just helps pop the cupcake right out. You can just go like that and it pops right out. So it's great for non-stick. The next thing you'll need is measuring cups. When baking, it's kind of like a science. You got to make sure that you have the exact amount in the recipe, otherwise your cupcakes won't turn out perfectly. What I use is a little spatula. You just scrape at the top, okay? You can, if you don't have this, you can always use a knife or you can just pat it on the counter. Today, we will be using 1 cup, 1.5 cup, and 1/4 of a cup. When measuring, it's important to remember that you are precise. So I have teaspoon measurements, I have tablespoon measurements, and I have 1.5 teaspoon measurements. If you don't have these, you can always use what's in your kitchen, so just a regular tablespoon or a teaspoon, but it's important to remain consistent. If you're making 1 teaspoon of vanilla, you need to make sure that you also use the same teaspoon size for your baking powder. When you're making cupcakes and you are using the non-stick pan, it's important you have a liner. They also create a little bit of decor on your cupcake besides the icing. I like to use neutral colors, but they come in a variety of colors and shapes and forms. So on the side here, you can see that there's stars and it's also pink. Just try and color coordinate with your occasion. So for instance, if you're doing a baby shower, maybe you want to get blue or pink cupcakes holders and maybe having a little umbrella on it would be cute. The next thing you will need is a mixer. You can either have a stand-held mixer, an electronic handheld mixer, or a whisk. Today we will be using the electronic handheld mixer because I think this is more realistic for a beginner baker. Stand-held mixers can run about $500 and can be pretty pricey if you're not sure that baking is for you. The next thing you'll need is for icing. This is a handheld piping container and it's got a tip attached to it. This is a number 38 tip. We'll be using this today because it creates beautiful roses, which I'll be showing you at the end. Very simple to make and look beautiful. If you don't have this nifty little container here, you can use just a regular piping bag, okay? They're disposable, or you can get the ones that are not disposable you can wash out. This is a non-washable one. It's important, though, that you have the 38 number tip because that will be what is crucial in making our roses. The next thing you'll need is a little spatula. I have a very small, dainty one, but you can get a pretty big one as well. I use this just to scrape the sides of the bowl so that we get all of the cupcake mixture into those cupcakes. I know that sometimes people like to lick the bowl, but we need all that we can for our cupcakes today. Now we're going to get started with our vanilla cupcake. Today I've already laid out the ingredients for you. I like to do this before I start making the cupcake just because it's easier for me, I'm more organized, and it's more cleanly. So let's get started. Today we'll need 2 eggs, 1.5 stick unsalted butter, I like to use the sticks just because it's easier for me to measure. If you look on the side, you can see that they've got the measurements out there for you. So if you are following a different recipe one day and you decide that you're going to use sticks of butter, it will tell you that 1 stick equals half a cup. If you're using a block of butter, that's fine as well. You'll just need to measure it out first using a measuring cup. The next thing you'll need is flour. I'm using cake or pastry flour. You can use regular flour by all means because we're using an electronic mixer and it gets out all the lumps. I've also included in this mix 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. The next thing you'll need is 1 cup of milk. I'm using whole milk just because we also need whole milk for our buttercream. Don't like milk to go to waste, and I don't drink whole milk, so I like to use it in my baking. The next ingredient you will need is 1.5 cups of sugar. The last ingredient you will need is vanilla extract. This is a pure vanilla extract. I can't stress enough the importance of you getting a pure vanilla extract. The artificial flavors do change the taste of the cupcake, and since this is a very basic cupcake with very few flavors, the purity of the vanilla extract is key. We do have an article on Sweet and Small that describes the different types of vanilla and their uses, so please do check it out. I'm going to actually go ahead and add this because I haven't added it to the milk. I didn't want you to think my milk was discolored. So this is a teaspoon measurement. I'm going to add 2 of these to the milk. Okay, and that's the last of our ingredients. Okay, so now I've explained all the ingredients to you. We've gotten them all measured. We're gonna start putting them in the bowl. Okay, so since we are beginners, I'm gonna start with creaming the butter. I'm just gonna put the 1/2 stick of butter in there for you to see. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it into small pieces. I find this is easier when you're creaming butter. The important thing here is that the butter is soft enough. So you see how my spatula is kind of melting it almost, kind of like pushing it down. That's the right consistency that we want for the butter. So I'm just going to cut it into little cubes, okay? And this usually the softening of the butter takes about an hour. And I'm just going to go ahead and add the whole stick of the last butter. Okay. So what we're going to do is cream this for a little bit or blend it for a little bit so that it gets a little smooth, and then we'll add the sugar. Okay, so it's already a little smooth there, nicely blended. We're just going to go ahead and add our sugar. And we're going to start blending. Blending usually takes about 3 to 5 minutes. So don't be alarmed if it takes a little longer and you don't find that the consistency is where you want it to be. If you need to, you can use the spatula to scrape the sides. It's also important to rotate when you are blending, so you want to make sure that you are blending everything together. Okay, and we're almost there. You can see that the texture is becoming a little bit creamier. So once your butter is a creamy texture, you can notice this when you put your spatula in, it's quite creamy. Okay, we're just going to wipe the spatula off on the side. You can add your eggs. Okay, so go ahead and add our eggs. If you don't feel comfortable cracking your egg on the side of the bowl just because you're afraid of the shells, you can always crack it on the side of a smaller bowl, put it into the bowl, and then move it from the bowl into the bigger one. Okay, I feel confident in cracking shells, so I'm going to go ahead and crack half of it. Pour the egg in. I'm going to take the second one, do the same thing. Okay. And now we're just going to blend that mixture together. So you've got a creamy, nice mixture still. If you feel like there's a lot on the edges, you can again take your spatula and scrape around. Okay. Just give it a good scrape. Now what we're going to do is add, sorry guys, here we go. So now what we're going to do is add our liquid ingredients. This would be the milk and vanilla. Please remember that your milk needs to be room temperature. So ideally, if you're getting all your ingredients prepped, you can always keep the milk out for a little bit. It should be the first thing along with the butter that you pull out of the fridge, okay? So we're just going to pour some of it in, okay? Blend it, and then we'll pour the other half in after. Okay. Then we're going to add the remainder of our liquid mixture. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of our flour. I would say probably our flour mixture here, probably about a third of it, okay? I notice there's a lot on the sides of my bowl, so I'm going to just give it a good scrape before I add the rest of the flour mixture in, or a little bit more of the flour mixture in. Okay. Another 1/3 of it. Once again, I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl. And we'll add the remainder of our flour mixture. Okay, so once you're finished mixing, I'm just going to give the bowl one last scrape, make sure everything's off from the sides. If you feel like it needs another mix, please go right ahead. Otherwise, you can kind of mix it with the spatula. That's fine too. Okay, so now you've got a nice creamy vanilla batter. And we're going to get started with lining our cupcakes and putting the batter into the cupcakes. Now that you have your batter ready, we can go ahead and line the cupcake trays. I've already done that here. And it's also important to preheat your oven at this point. So 375, okay? And it's important, very important actually, that you preheat your oven and allow it to fully preheat. If you don't, the cupcakes won't cook evenly. So we're gonna go ahead and scoop some of the batter into the cupcake molds. It's important as well that you only fill it 2/3 of the way up, okay? I kind of start from anywhere. Some people have a method. I don't really. So we're going to just fill this up. This should give you about 24 cupcakes. I'm going to make 12 today. You cannot freeze this batter, unfortunately. Now, it's okay if you find that it's not really even in the beginning. Once you move the tray, when you're done filling it, of course, you can move the tray and it will fill everything up for you. If you notice the first time you're doing it and it's not really even, that's okay as well. Cupcakes come in all different shapes and sizes, like people. Okay, I'm just going to go back in and refill some of the ones that I noticed are a little small. If you get any on the side of the tray, that's okay too. Just scrape it off with a wet cloth. It all looks good. Okay, I'm just going to grab a wet cloth and go ahead and scrape that off. Okay. And since it's a little lumpy, you can kind of shake it around like that. Okay, it evens it out a bit. Okay, and there you go. You've got your beautiful cupcakes ready to go in the oven. So now that your vanilla cupcakes are in the oven and they're baking, they should be done in about 20 minutes. We're going to go through some of the stuff you would need in order to ice your cupcake. So here we have some of the different varieties of piping bags you can have. One is a container, another one is a disposable piping bag, and the last one is a silicone piping bag that you can wash and reuse. All of them are great ways to ice. It just is dependent on your preference. Usually what comes with your icing bag or your piping bag is a variety of different piping tips or nozzles. These are the basics you would find in any piping kit. There's also one attached to here. So I will go through them very briefly with you. We'll be only using a few of them in these segments, but you can use all of them in different or a variety of ways. The first one, which is attached to the top of this piping bag, is a star-shaped closed nozzle. Okay, this creates roses and it can create ripples if you'd like. It's a really common piping head. The next one we have here is a very small circular nozzle. This is great for when you are writing. For instance, if you're writing happy birthday in a cupcake, this is perfect. The next one over is a leaf nozzle. So this is great for creating leaves. The one after that is a very common one as well. It is used when you are just creating a very basic swirl. You can also create little drops as well. The one after that is a jagged edged star. It's also open. It creates very nice ribbed effects on swirl cupcakes. And the last one that we have here is a flat nozzle, and you can see on the other side that there is ridges. This helps when you're creating basket weaves. So those are some of the very basic heads you would get. I've actually got this piping bag in a glass, and I'll tell you the reason for that. It's actually a great way for you to avoid a little bit of a mess. I learned the hard way after several attempts at trying to put icing into a bag once. So what you do is you basically shove the piping bag in there and then you start putting your icing in it. This prevents you from having to kind of fiddle with the piping bag while you're trying to ice it. Okay, it kind of flops over. You'll see in a little bit when we try and fill it later. Now that we've gone through all of the different types of icing bags you can have and the different types of tips you would get in a beginner kit, we are going to start making our vanilla buttercream icing. Okay, the first thing you're going to need, or ingredient you're going to need, is icing sugar. That's most vital. You will need 4 cups of that. The next thing you're going to need is room temperature milk, preferably either whole or light cream. It's also got in there, I've already mixed in there, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Please ensure that it is pure vanilla extract and not the artificial extract. The next thing you will need is 1/2 cup of butter or 1 stick of butter. This is an unsalted softened butter. Please ensure that it is softened. That's vital to making the creaminess of the buttercream. Now that we've got all our ingredients, we're going to go ahead and start making our buttercream. I'm going to just drop the butter in there. Now this is really up to you. You can whip your butter for a bit, or you can add everything at once and then whip after. I prefer to whip my butter first so it's a little bit softer. Now that I've got the butter broken up, you can also cut it into cubes if you'd like. I'm going to pour the wet ingredients, which is the milk and the vanilla, into the bowl. And I'm going to add a little bit of the icing sugar. Please don't add all of it at once. It can create a little bit of a mess. So I'd say about 1/4 is a good way to start. When you're mixing and you notice a lot on the sides, don't be afraid to scrape the sides of the bowl. It's important to remember when you're making buttercream, don't be afraid to whip it. It needs to be really mixed in well, and it needs to be very fluffy. We're going to add a little bit more of the icing sugar now. Okay, I'm going to repeat the process again, taking off the excess on the sides. And adding some more of our icing sugar. Okay, once more, I'm going to scrape the sides. See, it's already beginning to become fluffy and nice and creamy. We're going to add some more of the icing sugar. This usually takes about 3 to 5 minutes of actual whipping. What you're going to do is scrape the sides again, bring down any of the excess icing sugar. You can actually give it a few stirs if you need to. Okay. If you feel like it's still stiff, you can add a little bit more milk. I wouldn't suggest adding more than a drop though, because it does become liquidy very quickly. Okay. For me, this is perfect. We've got a great buttercream here. It's fluffy, it's nice, and it looks delicious. So when you are finished making your vanilla buttercream, you have to put it into a piping bag. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do this, just in case you've never done it before. So what I have here is, remember how we talked about having a piping bag in a glass? So my piping bag, it's a little weird. It's a little taller than normal, so I'm going to make do with what I got, but yours should fit around the glass. Make sure it is a tall glass. So what you're going to do is scoop some of the buttercream into your piping bag. So you're going to go like this and push it down. Okay. Since I'm going to be using the container, I'm not going to fill this all the way up, but I'll show you how it's done just in case you need to use it. So because my piping bag is a little bit bigger, it doesn't work as well. That's okay, yours will work perfectly. So what we're going to do is when you're finished filling it all up, I would say you should fill most of it all the way up to the top of the glass. You're going to pull it off the glass, okay, slowly, guys. And what you would have here is the piping bag, okay? And you would have a lot more icing than I do right now just because I want to fill my actual container with it. So you're just going to push it all the way down until it reaches the end. What you do with the top of the bag, so what you're going to do is take it and swirl it like this so it doesn't come out the other side. Then you're going to take your hand, whichever hand is dominant. So I'm right-handed, so I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to place the piping bag right between the crease between my thumb and my index finger. And I'm going to hold the piping bag like so, okay? Mine isn't really full, so you can't really tell, but yours would be probably around here, okay? So you'd hold it nicely and you'd hold this. The hand that you are holding the piping bag with is what will be used to apply pressure, okay? You can use this hand to guide the piping bag if you feel like you need that, or you can use it to hold the cupcake. So this is the cupcake. You would hold the cupcake like so, and you can just pipe like this, okay? And you would use this to guide the cupcake. Okay. So while your cupcakes are still baking, okay, this is a great time filler, or consumes a little bit of time. I would suggest you do this at the last minute though, because your buttercream will start to come out the bottom, okay? So guys, once you've completed your buttercream and you have cleaned up your workstation a bit, you should be able to check your cupcakes. It takes about 20 minutes to bake in the oven. Please make sure they are completely baked. You can do so by inserting either a toothpick or a fork into the cupcake and pulling it out and seeing if it's clean. If it's not clean, it needs some more time. So our cupcakes are done. We let them cool. Usually it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. So we're going to start frosting our cupcakes. I have both a silicone piping bag and a container. If you have a disposable piping bag, that is great. You can use that as well. When you are using a disposable piping bag, please make sure you insert the tip. You would have to cut the end off the disposable piping bag, insert the tip, and then put the buttercream in as well. So let's get started. We're going to make a rose. So for the first cupcake, we are going to decorate. We are going to make small roses. It's because this tip here is quite small, so you'll notice that the top of it is pretty small, and we wouldn't be able to go around a large cupcake with this tip. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing you are going to do is pick up the cupcake you're going to ice. So you're going to grip your piping bag like I showed you before, which was with your thumb and your index finger. You're going to hold it around and you are going to apply pressure. My piping bag is a little different. It's a little container, so I'm going to do it a little differently. You are going to angle your tip about 45 degrees from the cupcake. You're going to hold on to the cupcake and you are going to start. So we're going to start in the middle today and we are going to do a small rose. That means you are going to apply pressure, go once around, okay, twice if you need to, and pull up. That's a small rose. Now we're going to do this and cover the entire cupcake. So we're going to start again, press down, rotate around, slightly overlapping the first layer, and pull up. Again, press down, slightly overlapping as you go around, and pull up. Okay, you continue to do this for the entire cupcake. Okay, pull up. As you get the hang of things, you can go a little faster. It's okay if there's small gaps as well. I'm going to show you what to do if there are small gaps in your roses or in between your roses. Okay. Now, if you notice that your cupcake has a few holes in it, Oh, you can see that here. There's a few gaps between your roses. That's fine too. You can create little buds, or I like to call them buds, but just little dabs in there to kind of fill up the area. So they look like rosebuds. Okay, and you just pull up. So apply pressure and pull up. Again, apply pressure and pull up. Apply pressure and pull up. And there you have it. So it's a little rose bouquet. So if you would like to create a larger rose, you can do so. You would have to use a larger head, like this one here, which is a 1M. Okay, it's the same design at the front though, so it is still a star slightly open. Okay, so we're going to begin in the middle like we did with the other rose, and we're going to continue with that same idea. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to apply pressure, and we're going to start in the middle like we did with the previous cupcake. You are going to bring it around, so once you have a dab in the middle, you are going to bring it around, okay, overlapping a little bit on top of what you had previously put down. Okay, and you're just going to keep continuing. Okay, the same way you did before, overlapping a little bit. Okay, until you get to the end of your cupcake. We're really close now. Okay, and you are going to pull away quickly. And there you have it, a beautiful large rose.